Breath has been used for centuries to detect the health condition of an individual. Now, breath is usually associated with, oxygen and carbon dioxide, but actually your breath contains quite a lot of compounds such as methane, hydrogen, and acetone. And so these compounds can give us insight into how we digest certain foods or give us insight into our health condition. For example, diabetic ketoacidosis is usually spotted when you can smell the breath of someone that smells quite like acetone or nail varnish remover. But also, I used to be able to smell when my son has tonsillitis as a child, or before it even, before the onset even. Urea has been tested for ages in breath to test for a bacteria called Helicobacter pylori, which can cause ulcers. So breath has been used for a very, very long time to indicate whether something is off. So it's really a form of data that can provide insight and that can be used to inform what we should be doing or what we should be taking. So in the old world, breathables, or they're also called inhalables, were generally used in the clinical setting by the doctor who would prescribe you this kit, and you would take it home or you would do it right in clinic, breathe into this little device that then gets locked up and sent to a lab for analysis. Now, you would of course need to wait for a few days to get those results back, but they would then be interpreted by your healthcare practitioner. It could be your doctor, could be your functional doctor, functional nutritionist, and they would then provide you with an explanation of what to do, what to consume, and when. Now, because of advances in technology and sensors, this has meant that these devices do not have to be used in the clinical setting anymore. Some can only be used in a clinical setting, like an indirect calorimetry, for example, which is like a mask kind of a device where you actually need to lie down and it can measure your resting metabolic rate. And so those kind of heavy technologies were really limited to the clinical setting, but new technologies have kind of made it possible to create little replicas of these bigger sedentary devices to be able to be used in the real-time setting, which is very relevant, it is very needed, and of course there are advantages to that as well. So in this new world, we are using these devices because they are very convenient. You can take them anywhere, you can put them in your bag, you can measure yourself anytime, you can breathe into it, of course you're breathing all the time, and of course you can also then get real-time feedback into how you are responding. It could be to treatment, but it also could be how you are digesting foods, for example. And so it can then provide you directions and insight into what to do next, whether that's what to consume or also, when to start exercising. And so if we're looking at who's kind of using these devices or is interested in using these devices, it could be athletes, for example, to see whether they have fueled enough, what kind of metabolic source they are using. So are they burning carbs? Are they burning fat? It's also been used by individuals who are looking at weight management. So are they actually burning fat? Or are they burning carbs, and how do they need to adjust their diets accordingly? In the research, it's also been used in individuals with epilepsy who follow a ketogenic diet, which is incredibly low in carbohydrates, for example, and so you switch then your fuel source in your body to using fats. And therefore, using a device like this can then indicate when that switch actually happens and if it is then continued as well. And it also can give an insight into, again, this kind of metabolic flexibility, which is, are you burning fat or are you burning carbohydrates? And so looking at metabolic health, individuals who are either don't have good glucose control, are pre-diabetic, they can get an insight into are they burning carbs or are they burning fat. Now, current devices, they're only, I wouldn't say there are many devices available on the market at the moment. It's still a relatively small segment within the personalized health and nutrition industry. But companies such as Lumen, Lumen that measures metabolic flexibility. There's also the Avocadio, which measures the amount of acetone in your breath. And there's also the Air device, which actually measures whether you are malabsorbing kind of fructose and lactose by measuring hydrogen and methane in your breath. So there are quite a lot of different applications for these wearable devices, depending on what your health goal is and what your interest is. But of course, the question that always comes up is, how accurate are these devices? Now, accuracy, of course, needs to be measured against the gold standard. So if you're thinking about, are you burning fat, or are you burning carbohydrates, the gold standard would be indirect calorimetry, which is this device that is used in the clinical setting and also is not available, in every single hospital. But that would really give you an indication of how much does your body actually need. How much does your body actually expend in terms of energy? And so you want to be looking for a device that has been tested in a clinical trial against the gold standard to see how it pairs up, for example. But you also want to look for devices that, you want to look for the study group where this device has been studied in. So for example, if the study group in the clinical trial was epileptic individuals or individuals that suffered from epilepsy, that might not be as applicable to somebody who's, for example, preparing for a marathon. So you want to be able to see that actually the device was tested in the right population, how accurate was it, and also what was the sample size of the research. So many of the studies that are available were done in very small sample groups, so you want to be able to make sure that these research studies have been replicated in different population groups and also in larger groups as well, to see if that kind of accuracy and efficacy still actually holds as well. Now, how do breathables fit into the future of personalized health and nutrition? Well, I think it's quite nifty to have these devices because, of course, you are always carrying them around, or they can fit into your bag. You don't need need to go into clinic to have them done. But of course, there is this matter of this accuracy that where you want to be really, really sure that it provides accurate feedback, and of course, it needs to be paired with the behavioral side, with the actionable side. So there's no point in just getting, are you burning fat, are you burning carbs? You want to be able to know, what shall I do now? What shall I eat now? What should the nutritional composition be of the snack that you are recommending? So you want access to recipes, meal plans, products, for example, that match your personalized goals, and actually how to mitigate the effects of maybe of your results. Also, I think the consumer acceptance is quite high because of this convenience factor. But of course, it needs to fit into this holistic health that consumers are looking for right now. And so if you're looking at just improving your metabolic health, that might not be your goal. And so it needs to be that for you to get an understanding of, how are you burning? How does that impact your sleep? How does that impact your energy levels, for example? And does it actually, improve your well-being? You do not want to become obsessed with, are you burning fat? Are you carbohydrates? Because it's not necessarily something that you can feel. You can get the data, but obviously you want to do something about it and not obsess about that as well. Also, it needs to be presented in a way that is not medical, so that people don't stop you in the street and say, hey, what's wrong with you? It needs to be quite a device that looks trendy, that you can use at any time, that you're not embarrassed to use. And of course, you need to definitely have this expert interpretation, because there always needs to be some interpretation, whether that's in the situation of your lifestyle, in comparison to your health condition, what is the research in the wider spectrum. And so you need an expert to actually explain the results to you, that knows you very well, that knows the science very well, and that knows the technology also very well. The disadvantages are, of course, that it's not a very cheap device. They are easily over $200 or even 200 euros. And so they can be expensive. So if this is the first step that you are doing towards your health goal, there are cheaper measures, of course, to look at. If you are looking at improving your metabolic health, or if you are improving, your performance, you can do that in cheaper ways as well. However, if you are interested, then it is a data point that you can use to inform your next actions. The other one, of course, the disadvantage is the accuracy that I talked about. We need a bit more research on the replicability of these tests, and also need the science to be done in bigger target groups. And of course, it's the ethical situation again, where we know that individuals who can afford this device will be driving the data in terms of the AI algorithms. And so how ethical is it? But of course, if people are getting utility from it, they're getting feedback, they're getting use from it, it should be made more widely available. And of course, the experience also needs to be easy. So for some of these devices, it's not just about picking up the device and breathing into it. There's actually a technique to it. Just like you would have an asthma inhaler, for example, there is a technique to using it. And so if it's not easy, then you're probably not going to get the results that you are looking for, or the results are not going to be consistent. And so it is a disadvantage that can be overcome with education, instructional videos, for example, but people should be able to know how to use it and use it consistently, whether it's a particular time of the day or before a particular meal. But it needs to be easy in terms of the experience. So when we are talking about breathables or inhalables, the word is still out. I would say it's not quite taking our breath away in terms of the personalized health and nutrition area, but there's certainly a future for it as part of a program, and exactly as a data point, whether you want to just use it for prevention and seeing what you're burning if you're an athlete, all the way to using it as a medical nutrition device to see if you are malabsorbing fructose or lactose, for example, or if you are improving as well in terms of your gut health. So I hope that's been helpful, and I'll see you on the next video.